Good morning. I've passed some comments on fairly strong opinions on Aboriginal culture, and I thought it was if I let you know where I've got these, what my sources are, where these ideas have come from. They're not, even though we've travelled around Australia many times, my first contact with Aboriginals in the wild was in the early 1960s when I was in the Air Force Reserves, and we flew out to Herman Island, Melville Island and Hermansburg Mission around there, and met Aboriginals in their, in an age that's long gone. One of the sources that I found very helpful of recent publication is this one by Grantley Keezer called Macquarie. It was published in 2019 by the ABC. While it looks at Macquarie specifically, it talks a lot about what Macquarie did to try and improve the lot for Aboriginals. He set up schools, he tried to protect them, and how the conflict between the white settler and the black hunter-gatherer, how he tried to manage that. Sometimes successfully, and unfortunately sometimes not successfully, but it's a very good read, this book. I would recommend it. Now another one, which was one of my op shop finds, and you should always scour the op shops for old books. That's right, Historical Studies, Australia and New Zealand Selected Articles. I found this an interesting book too. It was withdrawn, so it says on the inside cover, from Mount Lawley Teachers College. Now, oh, that's interesting. It was published in 1964, and this book is a 1967 edition. But I'd say what's happened is the opinions that it expresses and supports are out of political favour now. The opening article is extremely good because it's Australian Aborigines 1606, that's first contact, to 1929, opinion and field work. Interesting read. I found it quite helpful. Another source I've had, which is quite interesting and a little bit enigmatic for me because I can't find out who published the book, but it looks like it's a collection of newspaper articles that have been put together called Stories of Australian Colonial Days. When you read them, they look like newspaper articles, and certainly some of the material that's been copied certainly looks like it's come from old sources. Interesting, but I can't quote that with any authority. But one article I did find very helpful was published it's called The Life and Death of Precontact Aboriginals in Australia. It was published on the 29th of September 2020 in Quadrant magazine. Now, it opens with this statement: when Europeans first settled in Australia in 1788, they encountered an Aboriginal society of almost incredible barbarism and violence. This was the reality of what they found. So the article is interesting. Now, of course, I wondered where the author is drawing his sources from and who the author was. Now, the author is William Rubinstein. He taught at Deakin University and the University of Wales and now lives in Melbourne. He references the work of an anthropologist whose name is Ludwig Krzyzewski, 1859 to 1941. He was a professor of social studies at Warsaw University. The particular book was Anthropological Study, Primitive Society and its Vital Statistics. Now, what caught my eye about this was it's drawing on sources that are closer to the events that they're talking about, which always gives them a bit more reliability. One of the reasons for that is the closer you are reading an account to its historical event, there are more people who are alive that can criticise you, can challenge your opinion. Now that's just a few of the sources I've used. There are many others there. My library, I'll just go over and get a few. Oop. Now I've read all of these books and I've enjoyed them. We of the Never Never, even been out there and seen the place where that Mataranka, where the film was shot. That's a good read. Russian Jack, Hall's Creek's got a statue to him there, an interesting read too. How much is truth and how much is myth, I'm not too sure. Bill Brumby wrote an interesting article, reading labels on jam tins, living through difficult times, talking history with Bill Brumby. That's an ABC publication too. The glittering years of Kalgoorlie and Boulder focuses particularly on what happened in the goldfields. And this series, Sons of the Saddle by Mary Durack, there's a couple of those, and they're a really good read once you get into the, once we travelled up into the Kimberley and started to see life as it was up there, of course we got interested in the history. So just as a bit of an introduction to those few comments or negative attitudes that I've included in some of my poetry as to the lot of the Aboriginal, I really feel that Stan Grant's article that before the National Press Gallery recently, he pointed out that over 80% of Aboriginals are in our society now and we don't even see them. They're the ones that have adapted. The visible ones that we see laying around in parks, drunk and disorderly and fighting, that distress you, and it is distressing. These are the people that haven't adapted. So that's just to bring you up to speed a little bit about what has formed my thoughts in this area.